Hello, everyone,
I hope you are all doing well.
and that life is bringing you peace and knowledge.
My name is Zaid.
And today we are beginning a fascinating journey into the story of ancient Egyptian civilization, a culture that shaped human history for more than 3,000 years. When we speak of Egypt, many people think only of pyramids, mummies, and pharaohs, but the reality is far deeper and far richer.
Egypt was one of the earliest places in the world
To develop agriculture, organized society, and complex systems of writing and belief. It is not an exaggeration to say that much of what we call civilization today was influenced by the Egyptians. The story begins along the Nile River. Unlike many ancient rivers that were unpredictable and destructive, the Nile had a rhythm. Each year it flooded with remarkable regularity, leaving behind fertile black soil. This made Egypt a natural breadbasket, where farmers could grow wheat, barley, flax, and vegetables. The surplus harvest allowed people to create towns, trade networks.
and eventually a state.
By around 3100 BCE, Upper and Lower Egypt were united under a ruler known as Narmer, sometimes called Menes. This unification was more than political. It created a shared identity, with symbols like the double crown, representing both regions. From this point onward,
Egypt developed dynasties, families of rulers.
who would guide the kingdom for centuries. One fascinating detail is how early Egyptians,
Mastered stonework and construction techniques.
long before the building of the Great Pyramid, archaeological evidence shows that even before large pyramids, they built mastabas, rectangular tombs with sloping sides, which became the foundation of later monuments. Egyptians also created one of the first writing systems.
Hieroglyphs.
Unlike alphabets, these were complex symbols representing sounds, objects, and ideas. They were carved on temple walls, written on papyrus scrolls, and used for everything from recording trade to telling stories of gods and kings. Before we move to our today, I want to say that this channel is user-friendly.
No offensive content. No misinformation.
We explain things with respect, curiosity, and authenticity.
Religion was at the center of Egyptian life.
For them, the world was filled with divine forces, and the gods were seen as protectors of order, what they called Ma'at. Every aspect of nature, the sun, the Nile, the desert, even animals, was linked to a god or goddess. Ra, the sun god, was believed to sail across the sky each day and pass through the underworld each night. Osiris represented death and rebirth, while his wife Isis symbolized healing and protection. The pharaoh was not only a king, but also a divine figure, a bridge between the gods and the people. Temples were not only religious sites, they served as centers of learning, administration, and economy. Priests studied astronomy to mark the flooding of the Nile, and they recorded rituals with precision. Some temples stored granaries, others acted as schools, and many were decorated with carved texts that preserved history for future generations. Daily life in Egypt was surprisingly organized. Most men worked as farmers, craftsmen, or traders. Artisans painted tombs, carved statues, and wove textiles. The Nile also gave them fish, while livestock like cattle and geese were raised in villages. Bread and beer were staples of their diet, along with fruits such as dates and figs. Interestingly, beer was so common that workers at pyramid sites were often paid in beer rations. Another remarkable aspect of Egyptian society was its approach to medicine. Doctors combined practical observation with spiritual belief. Papyrus texts revealed treatments for broken bones, dental issues, and infections. Some remedies, such as using honey for wounds, are known today to have antibacterial effects. This shows how advanced their medical knowledge was. Compared to other ancient cultures, education was also important. Scribes, trained from childhood, were responsible for record-keeping. They used ink on papyrus, and their skills made them highly respected. A boy who became a scribe could rise far above the social status of his parents, Entertainment was equally diverse. Music, dance, board games like Senet, and storytelling all formed part of daily leisure. Sports such as wrestling, archery, and rowing were popular among men. Festivals tied to the agricultural calendar brought communities together with processions, music, and offerings to the gods. Egyptian art was not only decorative, it reflected deep symbolism. Colors had meaning. Green represented fertility, gold stood for eternity,
and blue for the heavens.
This art style stayed remarkably consistent for thousands of years, a sign of stability in their worldview. When most people imagine Egypt, the pyramids rise instantly in the mind. These monumental tombs, built during the Old Kingdom, were not only burial places, but symbols of divine authority and eternal life. The Great Pyramid of Giza, constructed for Pharaoh Khufu around 2600 BCE, remains one of the most extraordinary feats of human engineering. It was originally covered in white limestone casing stones, which reflected the sun, making it shine brightly across the desert. Contrary to popular myths, these pyramids were not built by slaves. Archaeological evidence shows that skilled workers, well-fed and organized, lived in nearby workers' villages. They worked in rotating teams, using sledges, levers and ramps to move massive stone blocks. This reveals a society capable of incredible planning, discipline and coordination.
Engineering achievements went beyond pyramids.
The Egyptians developed irrigation canals to channel Nile waters, built temples with colossal stone columns, and even designed early surgical instruments. Obelisks carved from a single block of granite were transported over great distances and erected with astonishing precision. Trade was another lifeline of the civilization. Egypt exported grain, papyrus, and glass, while importing cedar wood from Lebanon, copper from Sinai, gold from Nubia, and exotic goods like incense and ivory. The Red Sea and Mediterranean routes connected Egypt to distant cultures, making it one of the earliest hubs of international commerce. Military power ensured that this wealth was protected. Pharaohs like Thutmose III expanded Egypt's borders deep into the Levant and Nubia. Chariots, introduced after contact with the Hyksos, gave the Egyptians speed and maneuverability in battle. Soldiers trained with bows, spears, and shields, while commanders coordinated large-scale campaigns that brought tribute and resources into the kingdom. Yet warfare was not always about conquest. Egypt often used diplomacy, sending envoys and gifts to foreign rulers. Marriage alliances linked Egypt with powers such as the Hittites and Mitanni. One famous example is the peace treaty, signed between Pharaoh Ramses II and the Hittites, considered the world's first recorded international treaty. Behind these achievements was a strong system of administration. Officials recorded harvests, labor assignments, and taxes, ensuring that the state ran smoothly. The ability to mobilize resources on such a scale allowed Egypt to sustain massive projects and maintain stability across centuries. As centuries passed, Egypt went through cycles of strength and weakness. The Old Kingdom gave way to the Middle Kingdom, a time of cultural flourishing and rebuilding. Then came the New Kingdom, often considered Egypt's age of empire, when rulers like Hatshepsut, Thutmose III, and Ramses II expanded influence across Africa and the Near East. But no civilization lasts forever. Internal struggles, invasions, and shifting trade routes gradually weakened Egyptian power. The Assyrians, Persians, and eventually the Greeks took turns ruling the land of the Nile. When Alexander the Great entered Egypt in 332 BCE, he was welcomed as a liberator, and his successors, the Ptolemies, blended Greek and Egyptian traditions. One of the most famous figures of this era was Cleopatra VII, whose reign symbolized both Egypt's brilliance and its vulnerability to Rome. Even under foreign rulers, the essence of Egyptian culture endured. Temples continued to be built, hieroglyphs were still carved, and the Nile remained the heartbeat of society. By the time Egypt became a province of Rome in 30 BCE, Its legacy had already shaped the ancient world. What makes Egypt extraordinary is not only its monuments, but its vision of continuity and order. For 3 millennia, Egyptians believed that life, death, and rebirth were part of a cycle guided by the gods. This belief gave them stability that very few civilizations achieved. Their legacy is everywhere. Modern calendars still echo Egyptian astronomy. Architecture worldwide has drawn inspiration from pyramids and obelisks. Medical texts preserved on papyrus influenced Greek and later Islamic scholars.
Even the simple act of writing on paper
Traces back to papyrus, one of Egypt's greatest contributions. Today, archaeology continues to reveal new insights. Recent discoveries of hidden chambers in pyramids, mummy DNA studies, and restored temples show us that ancient Egypt is not just history, but a living field of exploration. It reminds us of humanity's ability to adapt, innovate, and leave behind knowledge. All the information we provide comes from verified historical sources, including books, records, and archaeology. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Thrones of Knowledge. And don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified on time. Suggest our next topic in the comment section to help make our journey even better. Sources include Ancient Egypt, Anatomy of a Civilization by Barry Kemp, The Oxford History of Ancient Egypt, edited by Ian Shaw, records from the British Museum, and archaeological publications from the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities